The Sixth Day, directed by Roger Spottiswoode, came out in 2000 and is a sci-fi action masterpiece. It stars Terry Crews as a pro-cloning employee of Replacement Technologies. Through a case of mistaken identity, it becomes his job to go and kill an accidentally made clone. Since there are currently 2 of them, before people realize there has been a 6-day violation. Now, the 6-day violation being a law that was passed because previous attempts at cloning humans went horribly wrong. Throughout the film, we learn what led to that accidental cloning.
They specifically asked for Adam.
Yeah, I know what specifically means. I also know that the bodyguards can't tell the difference. They never got our names.
Oh.
That's true.
What the motivations of Michael Drucker are, who's the owner of Replacement Technologies.
It's often, because I have to. I can get everything I need from your memories. The fact is, I'd like you to understand. You'd also be serving a higher purpose. In 2 years, 3 tops, I will control enough votes to get the laws changed. And then we won't have to lose our best people. We won't have to lose our Mozarts. We won't have to lose our Martin Luther Kings.
And we do a deep dive around the morality of cloning and why it's so great with no downsides, and how allowing cloning is God's will. Terry Crews is highly effective at hunting down the criminal who's trying to stop the illegal things that they're doing. But he's the main character, so it's okay. He also shows his ability to work as a team, showing a lot of depth of character. The story culminates in the criminal and his original self breaking and entering into the company property to try to kidnap their family. They themselves safely relocated to a high secure facility. Terry Crews reveals that the criminal was a clone all along, and having a society that can clone to cheat death is a great idea. The Adam clone agrees, they kill the original, and the conflict gets resolved thanks to our protagonist. Okay, yeah, I'm joking, the film is about Adam, but it would have been a lot better if it wasn't. So let's take a step back. Who have we got in this movie? So we have Adam Gibson, who's like an anti-cloning pilot, family man, action hero. We have the anti-cloning pilot man, family, action hero's best friend, Hank, who is also a work colleague, who also has a romantic relationship with a hologram in his apartment.
Darling, where are you?
Hi, sugar.
Hello, my love.
Have you been working out?
I missed you, baby sweet.
Honey, it's beautiful.
We have Michael Drucker, who's the big bad of the film, the owner of Replacement Technologies, who is himself a clone and believes that cloning is the answer to cheat death. We have Replacement Technologies' nameless goons, their henchmen, Terry Crews and the gang. And we have Dr. Weir, the developer of the clone technology itself, who has a dying wife, and that's kind of his motivation to why he's created it and why he's okay with breaking the law. He wants to save her. The accidental cloning of Adam still happened, and the film is about him coping with having a clone of himself take over his life and being hunted down by Replacement Technologies to fix their mistake. So Drucker contracts his company to pilot him to this skiing location. That's kind of their job. But Adam has a party to get to, so he lets his friend do it under his name. The contract says Adam is on this plane piloting this, but he lets his friend Hank do it. That becomes relevant later. So someone else on that trip is against cloning. They're like a anti-cloning extremist. So they kill everyone on board. They don't just kill Drucker, even though he's the only clone on board. They kill everyone for some reason.
Hey, you on the Roadrunners, right?
So Adam gets cloned because he was on the contract. They believe that he died on that trip, and they want to sort of cover it up. But that doesn't make a lot of sense. Not only because the person on the trip killed everyone and not just the person that he wanted dead. Apparently they clone people through the use of a SIM card, which contains their biological profile and their memories or something like that. But at no point in the cloning did they check an ID of Adam or any personal information on him and then be like, oh, this isn't Adam. I'm glad we caught that mistake before things got out of hand, but nope. They don't do that. But also we find out later that the Adam we've been following through the events of the movie is a clone. And the next time we see him after that is he wakes up in a taxi. So, and because he's the clone, you would assume they've cloned him, given him his memories but kept him asleep or something, and then put him in a taxi. So they've seen a visual confirmation of what this clone is, and it doesn't register that he was not on the trip at all. Like, hey, this isn't our pilot. We're cloning him. We've got the name Adam. We're cloning that person. This isn't the pilot that we had. Oh, it must have been his friend Hank. They eventually do clone Hank, but I'm wondering at what point in the process did they realize that they had made their mistake? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it especially doesn't make sense later with how quickly that they're responding. It just doesn't make sense. So anyway, he wakes up in the taxi. He was taking the taxi to go to the mall. He's going there to go to this repet store to get a replacement dog. It's made pretty clear that Adam is against the idea of cloning. And the last time we hear him talk about it, he seems still pretty adamantly against it. But he immediately follows that up with, oh, maybe I'll go check it out. You clearly think that cloning is bad. Why would you even be considering going to this repet store who obviously clones pets? It's just like, do you agree with it? Do you like it or do you not? If you don't go there. If you do, go there. But why are you deliberating, you know? If I were to change how this was done, it's also mentioned earlier in the movie that his daughter wants this certain kind of doll. So you could easily just have him go to the mall, go to pick up this doll, see the repet store, and just sort of still be considering in the back of his mind, like maybe he gives it a bit of a look, maybe he's still, you know, skeptic of the idea, but ultimately just move on and get the doll. That would have made a lot more sense, but you could still see him sort of considering whether it's a good idea or not just one scene he's against it, and then he says, oh, I'll consider it, oh, I'm going to go and get one, kind of thing. Like, didn't really like it. And it only has a very small payoff later on in the movie anyway. So after he picks up the doll, he goes home. He sees a clone of himself already in his house. But he's the clone, that's the original. And things go downhill from there. And this is why I'm saying it doesn't make sense, because like a minute or two after he gets there, the replacement technology goons show up at his house and immediately try and take him away. So it's just like, they know through their own means that they made a mistake, but like, why did they only realize that after? That's what I'm saying. So there's a big sort of chase scene after I try and capture him. That scene ends with him escaping by falling into a dam, which you would think would really injure you, but it doesn't. It's all good. So trying to go to the police fails, because of course it does. The person at the police station, and this really bothered me, does not take the potential 6th-day violation seriously at all, which I think is ridiculous. Especially when, you know, maybe cloning people isn't commonplace, but the cloning technology already exists and seems to have existed for quite some time. So not taking a potential cloning of humans, which is highly illegal, seriously, especially when there is clearly some evidence for it, I really didn't like that. Adam goes to get help from Hank, his friend, who is also a clone because he actually did die on that trip. So back to Trip, the guy who killed Drucker initially on that trip, comes back to Hank's apartment because for some reason he knows that Hank got cloned. Drucker decides to use Adam's family as leverage, but that gets the real Adam involved, the original Adam. They team up to take down replacement technologies and get their family back. Adam finds out that they are in fact a clone, the one that we've been following, but isn't swayed to the dark side. They follow through and blow up the lab, and I think by the end of the movie all the bad guys are dead. So what I liked about the movie. Terry Crews, it's his film debut, I believe. A lot of the movies that he's in are quite funny. He obviously doesn't have a big role in this, but I just found it interesting that I'm a huge fan of Terry Crews just as like a person. I think he's an inspiration. And just by happenstance, I stumbled upon this movie and found out that it was his debut. I like the concept. I like they sort of develop the history of cloning in the movie's universe and having to deal with a clone of yourself, and they don't really explore it that well, but I like the concept that the movie is going for. And just a minor thing, it's just one of the technologies they have is called a Whispercraft. It can switch between a helicopter and a jet or something. And the effects obviously didn't age well, but I don't know, it's kind of cool. But on to what I disliked. Terry Crews is fine, but Terry's crew is very, very boring. Like them as the sort of goons, the sort of henchmen of replacement technologies, not that interesting. Obviously it's an action movie, you're not going to get much development the larger the cast gets. I'm still allowed to complain because there's no personality to these guys whatsoever. We at least know why Adam is against cloning, why Drucker and Weir are supporting cloning. But these guys are just, oh, we're just following orders, blah blah blah. And I mentioned earlier already, I don't like the inept police not taking the possibility of a 6-day violation seriously, but I already kind of covered that. The weapons that they have in this universe are like laser guns, kind of like Star Wars. So there's a lot of stormtrooper aim, but that's kind of an action movie trope almost. Like people having horrible aim. Kind of takes a lot of the stakes away, a lot of the tension away from our main characters. And like I think the 2 or 3 times we see an actual permadeath in the movie. Oh, it might be more than that. I think it might be 4. Right, so you've got Trip who dies, Hank who dies permanently, and then you've got the Drucker we've been following throughout the movie. He dies, but he gets cloned again, so I don't know if that really counts. But then his imperfect clone also dies. There's not a lot of permadeath in the movie, and when there is, it's sort of brushed off. It's either brushed off and moved on from very quickly, or it's like the main bad guy of the movie, so like who really cares? We want him gone. We're in support of our hero. I also kind of touched on this. We've got 2 versions of Adam, and both of them seem to be against cloning. Like they don't like it, they think it's unnatural. There's no discourse between them about which one is the clone, that they might not trust one another. There's none of that. They just pretty much immediately go and work together. Like, I get that their family is in danger and they kind of connect with that. And I'm sure that there might have been some tension between them, but it seemed to have just happened all off screen. And the next time we see them, they're just working together. Like, a better movie, a non-action movie, would have explored that a little bit more, and it would have been interesting to see that dialogue, but we don't get that. So at the end of the movie, they sort of win the day. The original Adam goes back to their family. Clone Adam decides that he's going to go off and do his own thing. Original Adam goes back, and he should be very aware now how evil these cloning companies can be. And he already was at the start of the movie, before the skiing trip accident happened. He was still against cloning. But he's fine with the repet dog, and they get another repet, which I thought was super confusing. He should be super aware that you can't trust these companies, that cloning is a bad idea. Has he taken nothing away from this movie? All throughout the movie, the events of the movie reaffirm Adam's position that cloning is bad. So why on earth would you A, keep Max? It's clearly a bad idea. B, get another repet? That doesn't make any sense. That completely flies in the face of everything we've been seeing throughout this movie, and Adam's position that he's held steadfast throughout this whole movie. God, that was so stupid. One possibility, I guess, is that he's met a clone, and that's why he's a bit more trusting of the technology. But that's still not... But I don't really buy that. But I don't really buy it. Again, I think there should have been more tension between them, and maybe they just very tenuously work together to get their family back and take down Replacement Technologies Lab. That doesn't happen, so the payoff, the wrapping up the movie happens differently. But if I were to make the movie, I would definitely have changed some things, and I wouldn't be okay with them like still trusting these companies that they were fighting against. And obviously, again, it's an action movie, underdeveloped characters. It happens with the Replacement Technology goons. It happens with Adam's family. They're pretty much there. They have very little screen presence. They're dead, and then they get kidnapped, and it's just there to move the plot forward. Anyway, that's pretty much the movie. My likes, my dislikes, a rough plot summary. What do I rate this? I will rate this 2 Arnold Schwarzeneggers out of 5.